Tundra presents The Mayor Helps with the Mayor of Victoria, British Columbia, Lisa Helps. Have your say. Send your questions and comments to themayorhelps.com. They could be included in next week's
Victoria
show.
Businesses to know that we're working.
And now, here's your host from beautiful Victoria, British Columbia, Dave Hatt.
Well, welcome to the Mayor Helps. Today, I'm Dave Hatt, and I'm here with Mayor Lisa Helps. And how are you doing this morning, Lisa?
Yeah, I'm doing well. It's another sunny day. Not so much smoke in the air today as there was yesterday. And yeah, it's always a good day when you start out.
It's pretty amazing, the smoke that came in yesterday. We've been, I guess, lucky this year because there hasn't been that much smoke coming from the interior, but yesterday was from Washington State, and it was ugly. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Can't imagine. I've got friends who live in Los Angeles, and they're just...
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, it's really something.
It is incredible. So let's talk about something that's positive in the city. You've done a lot along with council to help get businesses back on their feet. And you guys have a program that's encouraged businesses to overtake some of the parking spots or sidewalk. It's really cool with restaurants being able to sit outside. Maybe you could explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. It's called Build Back Victoria. And I'm happy to talk about that. I sent Dave a video that I took yesterday. It was Tuesday after Labor Day, 5 p.m. You know, everyone should be somewhere. I don't know, I guess not back at school yet, but back at work, you know. Summer's over, and so I don't know. I went to Pagliacci's, which is a restaurant on Broad Street, to pick up some cheesecake to bring home, and this, you know, that's one of the restaurants that's literally, in this case, taken over all of Broad Street, Short Street here in the downtown, and they've branded it as, I think, South Broad Street. Both sides of the street are filled up with tables. There was live music. There's live music every day from 3 to 5 during happy hour, and it was packed. In a socially distanced way, but packed. And, you know, there were people lined up waiting to get into the restaurant because there's a little bit of seating inside. And that's just, you know, one example. I think we've had over 100 such patios open in the summer in response to COVID, with the city saying, here's a creative way for us to help. And it's been remarkably successful. And, you know, the thing that I find interesting, and we were talking about this a little bit offline before we got on here, after I did my little video, I just, you know, for my own sake, because I'm not on Twitter or Facebook, I have nowhere to share it, but I wanted to take it just for posterity. And I ended up talking to this couple, and they just eaten dinner at PAG, so I guess late lunch dinner, I don't know. And they were from Nanaimo, and I was like, oh, well, what brought you to Victoria? And they're like, we love Victoria. And they said, you know, we've been watching the news a lot, and the city that we see on the news is not the city that we've experienced being down here today, you know. And so there's all these different stories that we tell about our city, and I think the Build Back Victoria is a good news story. Certainly businesses have appreciated it, and it you know, it's a kind of counterbalance to some of the negativity that we hear out there.
There certainly are a lot more people downtown buzzing about. You see, you know, Alberta license plates, which is, you know, hopefully they're doing their proper social distancing. But there definitely is an energy in the city right now that is improving over what it was even a few short weeks ago.
Well, and I think, you know, what's really interesting is, while the city staff, council gave direction, city staff kind of came up with the infrastructure, but it's really the businesses that have taken the leadership to make this work. And what, you know, the anecdotal feedback that we've heard, and staff are either currently surveying or will soon be surveying businesses to say, you know, has this worked? How has it worked? What doesn't work? And is this something we should keep? And I think overwhelmingly, the feedback so far is this is something we should keep. And, you know, whether the businesses are going to be able to serve, you know, food outside and beer outside during the winter is yet to be seen. Some people might get creative, but I think in the years to come, what's come out of Build Back Victoria is transformational in terms of these patios aren't going anywhere. They're going to be back next summer, and the summer after that, and the summer after that, and they'll probably just get bigger and better all the time. You know, when if anyone's got a chance to go down to Broad Street or anywhere else, but Broad Street is completely closed to cars, and you feel like you're in a little piece of Europe, but right here in our city.
It's a really cool thing that's happened for sure with the patios. And yeah, my vote would definitely be keep them. And yeah. be creative around space heaters. I know when I lived in Phoenix for a brief period of time, they had to get creative when it was super hot outside with misters. So, it's Canada. We just do the opposite here.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, Mayor Helps. I appreciate your time, and we'll
Okay.
on the other side.
See you then.
And now, Mayor Lisa Helps sits down with this week's special guest.
Morning. Welcome to the Mayor Helps. My name is Dave Hatt, and I'm here with my co-host, Lisa Helps. And we are speaking today. We've got the great pleasure to speak with Vicki Saunders, and she is the founder of an organization called SheEO. First up, good morning, Mayor. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I'm excited to be here as always, and really thrilled to have Vicki join us. She does have quite a story to tell, and she's impacting lives of women around the world. So it's a good news story.
Well, we need that right now. Vicki, good morning. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
And so you are in your car somewhere in Southern Ontario? Or
Yeah, sign of COVID. I'm by the lake. It's absolutely beautiful here.
Oh, wow.
In Lakefield, Ontario, sitting by the side of the road. Wi-Fi out at the cottage. So, hello.
That's the thing about COVID. We can all work anywhere, anytime.
Yeah, permission to just be human. I'm liking that about COVID.
Yeah.
With one of the components of my podcast network is we share stories of small businesses. So that was kind of selfish, that my excitement to meet you, because your organization, SheEO, you're a disruptor. You help finance women's enterprise. And as you've said, it's a radical generosity, which was an interesting term that I've seen you use. But maybe we could back it up a little bit. I noticed through your bio, you've been a serial entrepreneur, at least as far as I could tell, since the late 90s. And it's always been about helping other entrepreneurs. Maybe you could talk about what your work was back in the 90s. I know you were dealing with younger people. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I never thought I'd be an entrepreneur. Just start there. I'm not like one of those kids who has a story of like, I had a lemonade stand when I was 4 years old, and then I had this next. Like, that wasn't me. I grew up on a farm with a very entrepreneurial family, but at the time, nobody talked about entrepreneurs in a cool way. Like, it wasn't a thing that people wanted to be. I'm 55. So in my generation, it was like, you get a job, you work at a corporation, you get a good salary, et cetera. It wasn't like, there wasn't this vibe around entrepreneurship was cool. So it wasn't something I really thought of, but I was looking for something where I'd have a big impact. And, I studied to actually be an academic. I thought I was going to go and be a prof at a university. And then Prague happened to me. When the wall fell down, I happened to be in Europe. And that's where everything opened up for me to become an entrepreneur, where everyone was dreaming about what they were going to do now that they were free in this country, where one day there's a tank in your country and you're not free, and the next day it moves away and everybody starts to go, oh, this is what I've always wanted to do and I've never been able to do it. So I'm going to do it now. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to be? And that's where I really became an entrepreneur. And then the question that got me really into this innovation communities and really figuring out like, what are the conditions for entrepreneurs to thrive, happened because I was asked this question in Prague by someone saying, why are you doing all of this here? Like, starting businesses, but also being a catalyst for others to start businesses. Why are you doing this here instead of in your own country? And it was such a crazy question, because I thought, wow, like, I grew up in a place where I'm supposed to be free, but I didn't feel that way. And then in Prague, the conditions were so different in society, where everyone was dreaming now that there was this injection of freedom. How do you create the conditions for people to feel that way? And so I've kind of been obsessed with that ever since. And so, you mentioned the word disruption. I just think that we're really bad at creating the conditions for people to be the best they can be in the world. I think we're really good at putting rules and layers on top of people of what you're supposed to be. And that hasn't worked out very well. And we sort of look at the world right now, and most of us are getting streamed into, these are the 3 jobs you should get out of biz school. And these are the 4 ways to grow a business. And these are the 2 ways to be successful. And I just think there's billions of opportunities for showing up in the world and creating the conditions for yourself. And we need to really build that muscle, especially now. So that's a bit of my backstory.
Sorry to interrupt. You mentioned that you felt, so did you grow up in Canada then?
I did, yeah.
And you said you just said you never felt free. Was it free to be who you are, or all those free as a woman to pursue your dreams or hopes? I just wanted to pick
You
up.
want to unpack that? Yeah. Yes to everything. Yes to all those things. You know, I just remember looking at what people did for work and went, could I spend my whole life doing that? Like nothing really resonated for me. Like I had this sort of heaviness of wanting to have a big impact and to be really free to express myself and not have too many rules attached to me. So I've obviously been very obsessed with autonomy for a long time. I'm like the original millennial. So that was a real thing. But you know, of course, I noticed that it was different being a woman in the world. Then people were sort of talking about that, but not really. But I just think that I had this initial feeling inside that there must be other ways to be who you want to be in the world besides, you know, like, I don't know about you, but like there were, Vicki, these are the people you need to hang out with to be successful. This is how much money you should make. These are the job titles you should be seeking. Like there's a streaming of people into, you know, who they could and should be, or at least I felt that.
Well,
and none of it really resonated. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, Vicki, that's a brilliant point. And that streaming happens kind of early on, depending on your race, your class, your gender,
Yep.
like, and then that creates limiting opportunities or limits of opportunities for people, you know, depending on how you're situated in, you know, the systems that exist, the opportunities are different. And I think part of the brilliance of SheEO, and I know we're going to get to that in a minute, is that you don't look at any of that. You look at women and say, do you have a good idea? Doesn't matter where you're from, who you are, what your background is, and you nurture them and support them as a human and
Yeah.
to grow their business. And that breaks a whole bunch of molds.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, we are in this time where when I look out at the world, except for the beautiful nature I'm sitting in right now, but like most of the systems and structures that we have created were created for a different time and place and are no longer serving us. And so the worst thing we could be doing in educating people and in creating spaces for people to innovate is say, follow what we've done before. Like the worst thing. So when I walk into incubators and accelerators and see them go, here are the 3 experts who've done this before that you need to listen to help grow your business. And these are this is the playbook on how to grow a company. I'm like, our companies are extractive, greedy, not giving back to communities. Most of the times not treating entrepreneur or like their employees really well. Like there's a whole bunch of problems with the way that we do things. So why would we follow that rule book going forward? So I was very interested in how do you just create space for people to move through life on their own terms, because the diversity and uniqueness of each of our perspectives is a gift that we come with. And we want to nurture those gifts as opposed to take the difference away and try and get everyone to be the same.
So when you're doing that with SheEO or even previously with working with younger people, how do you gauge success? Because clearly one of the things you're speaking about right now is how society gauges success, where they say you've got
Right.
to, you've got to have the certain type of car, you've got to have the certain type of job with a certain amount of money and the
Yep.
real estate investments. And if you don't have a YouTube channel screaming at people to, make $1 million
Yeah.
by the end of the year, you're not quite making it. How do you gauge success?
Yeah, so we don't tell you how to be successful. We ask you, what is success for you? So as you apply as an entrepreneur into our community, you define what your vision is, where you're going, how you want to do it, what you're trying to solve, why you're the person trying to solve it, and what success is for you. And then activators in our network, the women who contribute capital, vote for the entrepreneurs and how they're doing things. We loan you money at SheEO on your own terms. It's a 0% interest loan that you pay back over 5 years. That's the only rule. The rest of it is over to you. And we fund people based on their own terms because they're solving really big challenges, what we call the world's to-do list, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And we know that to come up with new ways forward and new models and new mindsets, people need flexibility and space. And I don't know a single entrepreneur who projects out 3 years, this is exactly what we're going to do each quarter, but that's what funding asks you to do. And it's ridiculous. If you're creating new things, you have no idea what's going to happen 3 months from now. And the gift of COVID has brought us this chance to you can't really plan a week out these days. And every week is like a year. And so the space that we're in right now is really getting us to live in this place of uncertainty and not knowing, and bringing more trust forward. So SheEO is totally built for the time we're in right now. And again, yeah, Lisa.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you built it with this is the I think the brilliance of the work you're doing is you built it without knowing that COVID was coming, but already knowing that the systems that we were working in weren't working, and so you created something new that has kind of really, I think, found a home that's going to help in the post-COVID economy. Dave, one of the things that's coolest about what Vicki does, and Vicki, I can't find them when we saw each other last in Toronto or Ottawa or whatever city it was, you gave me what I call your SDG hockey cards.
Oh, the cards, yeah.
Cards. So
I'll send you more.
Okay, perfect. So Dave, you asked how do they measure success, and Vicki's outline. But one of the coolest things about SheEO is each business has its own. I'll call it a hockey card. It looks like a hockey card. It's got a profile of the business, and then on the other side, it's got which of the UN Sustainable Development Goals is this business addressing, and that's brilliant. Like to measure business success around solving the world's, as you call it, to-do list. Yeah. That's what we need from business going forward. It doesn't mean you can't make money. In fact, some of your entrepreneurs are making quite a bit of money, but they're also addressing the challenges in the world at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, so the SDGs, to me, I don't understand why we're putting any capital anywhere in the world that's not going towards the world's to-do list. Like everything's on fire. We have like a gazillion things to solve, and people are still trying to 10x their money on food security issues. Like what? So yeah, we think about this really differently, and those cards are awesome. It's partly because I have a brother that played in the NHL and another one who was drafted into the NHL, and not so like recently my brother got some card sent to him by a kid. Will you sign my hockey card? And I'm like, why do we value these guys as like the ultimate? Like, why do they have cards and women who are actually solving intractable global challenges don't have cards? I'm going to create hockey cards for women. So we did that for a portfolio, and it's great because they're tangible and you can look at them and see the kinds of amazing things that women are doing with their leadership.
It is a very interesting thing when you talk about solving problems in the world. My wife Cindy and I, we've owned the wet cleaner here in Victoria, so we're the city's only non-toxic dry cleaner, and we had a plan to do a consolidation roll-up. And so the plan never was to clean people's dirty drawers. It was to grow a business that had an impact immediately. Yeah. So as soon as we took it over, it was environmentally friendly when we took it over, but we've had it for about 13 years now. And I wound up going down to LA and I bought a location down there. But it really resonates what you're saying with me specifically, because in trying to run a business that is environmentally friendly, it does a better job, it's all the checklists that you need for a business to have. But then when you do people, the main driving force for people to choose a cleaner is convenience. Is it on my way home?
Right.
So it's a very interesting thing because they'd be up for having toxins in their lives. I don't really want to drive or take my bike a block out of the way. So what are some of the challenges that when you're seeing, I guess maybe not the challenges, but are you seeing the women that have gone through SheEO with the hockey cards, what they've done, what they've accomplished, what's the feedback they're getting from the community? Are they being supported more? Are you seeing more of a groundswell support, especially through COVID?
Well, so a few things there. I mean, I feel like the whole world just needs to like dramatically go the opposite direction of most things that it's been doing. But we have this narrative that you can't actually do well and make money at the same time still. Like we're still kind of bifurcated in that way, that there's some cost to doing good, but it's just because we don't actually track the extractive nature of a lot of our business models. Like there's not a single industry in the world that's profitable if you count in the environmental damage they do. Not one. Not a single sector that's profitable if you add that cost in. And we have to add in that cost right now. So right at the moment, our ventures have done incredibly well throughout COVID. And it's partly because they're in deep relationship with their customers. Their customers get to know them. they really care about them are activators who have funded them. Activators are a term for women who contribute capital into the SheEO community. They care deeply about these ventures and want to support them. So all of us have doubled down on these ventures to loan them money, to support them, to help them, to buy their products and services during this time because it's such a crisis. And I think, we've seen a lot of businesses that aren't in deep relationship with their customers have really struggled. Those are just transaction-based, that are not really rooted in communities, I think have had a bit of a harder time. I mean, it's just a brutal time for small business in general. So it's not just the relationship piece, but that's really helped. But I think it's a real competitive advantage to have a very strong story around that. So for example, in Vancouver, we have a zero waste grocery store named Nada, which is a great name for a zero waste grocery store. They had a real struggle because they have no packaging in their store. And so that, the bulk food kind of thing got shut down. One of our activators came along and said, let's put everything online for you. So for pro bono, this group went and put their entire store online. Their business is up. They've just hired another 6 or 7 people. They deliver the food from the store in these cargo bikes around Vancouver, zero footprint. They're just unbelievable and have had a really strong connection into their community. So, a lot of our ventures have pay, if they have sort of like minimum wage things, pay a living wage, zero harassment, zero carbon emissions, sometimes, carbon negative, and really working on how to design businesses of the future. So all of those pieces together, taking care of your employees, taking care of the environment, really paying attention to how you're trotting on the earth, and then distributing resources across your community, reinvesting in your community by giving back. All of those pieces are just the way business should be from my perspective. And I think it's the direction that we're all going in.
Yeah, doing this podcast through COVID and speaking with a lot of entrepreneurs, you're echoing sentiments that I'm hearing, over and over again. People that are looking to make a change, from the beginning of your conversation where they're saying, is this something I don't want to do? They're evaluating their career path, their business, their job choice, or their business even. And then what is it that I want to do moving forward? And I got to make a change. And not only do I have a change in my community, but I've got something to share. I work with other entrepreneurs, and sharing information across disparate communities is working, and it makes a lot of sense. So is that something that you do? Do you offer a mentorship, or do you connect with other different communities? Because clearly SheEO is focused on helping women. Do you are you able to work with other minority owned businesses, underrepresented businesses?
Yeah, so our focus at SheEO is we fund majority woman owned and woman led ventures, and our definition, gender non-binary, obviously, there's just a whole gender fluidity to what we're supporting. If you identify as a woman, you're more than welcome to apply to SheEO. Working on the world's to-do list is another one of our categories, and then revenue between $50,000 and $2 million. And we're just about to open our application process again across Canada between September 15th and October 31st. So any ventures out there that want to go check out our website and have a look to apply, please do. We are averaging about 60% of our ventures globally are women of color, Black, Indigenous. So that's a very big focus for us, the diversity around our community, and then obviously working on critical issues. So that's who we're supporting. We are very activist around this. I mean, with the racial reckoning that's happening around the world right now, we have a racial justice working group, and our activators are working on deconstructing their own thinking, how they've been upholding system, how we've been upholding systems, and how we need to decondition ourselves. You can't kind of create a new world when you've been conditioned only in a certain way and you don't even see the biases and the racism that you may be upholding. And so we're working very actively to be anti-racist and to work as a community to practice economic reconciliation. So our contribution of capital, it's $1,100 per woman per year, is being pooled together and then loaned out at 0% interest to a lot of people who haven't been able to access this capital before. And that's very important to us.
And you don't need to be a woman to be an activator, do you?
So we will take men's money, no problem. Bring us your money. We would just like you to put it in the name of a woman. who then who activates that money. So she would be the one who's voting. So only women are voting and participating in our community, but we're happy to take men's money.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Was I one of the first activators?
You were. You're in first year. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, and it's just been amazing to watch the company that I know that the money that I put in went to a local company here to really to flourish. I want to go back to something, Vicki, that you said, and Dave, with your permission, the not a grocery store, and I'm sure there are examples like that across the country and around the world. So it's growing business, it's solving problems, but it's also, I think, doing something, and I want to check this out with you, that's equally important at this time where there's so much polarization, so much division, a lack of sense of connection and belonging in our communities. And so what it sounds like, that example that you gave, it's also stitching community together. And I, in my position as mayor, I think that stitching needs to happen intentionally and deliberately, and because there's a lot of fragmentation, in cities across the country, here in Victoria, around the world. And so, can you talk a little bit more about the role of the businesses in building community just by the way they do business, and maybe a couple of other stories from other businesses?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, so Abigo is the company that's based in Victoria that you mentioned, run by a terrific entrepreneur, Tony DeRosier. And Tony is so intentional about everything she does. So it's breathable food wrap. Most of our food wrap is plastic and toxic. If you wrap our food, it starts to die immediately. So a cucumber goes mushy when it's wrapped in plastic wrap. When you wrap it in Abigo, it stays fresh for 10 days or more. It's like putting the rind back on. Amazing invention. She's an incredible inventor. She is obsessed with having great staff. She's super efficient in her production facility, which is in Vancouver, and she pays a living wage. She could pay minimum wage to people who are doing this work, but she's obsessed with, she wants people that are in Victoria to be making a living wage. And so I think she might use different language around it. I know there's some complications around what is a living wage versus not, but she pays people a wage where they don't have to get another job to make ends meet in Victoria, which is significant, and takes care of her her employees. And she gives back to the community. So she's very interwoven into the community. And our activators, who are based locally, are all contributing to her business and love what she's doing so much and how she's doing it, that they then talk to their friends, and that helps her to build a larger community of customers. So again, it's like the disconnections we have between like a customer and marketing and communications and our environmental footprint, everything is interconnected. And I think oftentimes in business, we hive things off and think they're separate. Like, oh, I'm going to save as much money as I can for my employees and try and be efficient. And I'm like, it's all tied together. If you treat I can't always say entrepreneurs all the time.
Maybe the employees are also entrepreneurial.
Yeah, maybe they are. It's like, sorry, I'm like block on that. But employees are. It's also because the term employee is kind of weird for me anyway. But everyone who's on your team is deeply connected into how you're doing things, and how they act and feel influences the customer, how the customer feels influences your business. Like that interconnectedness, I often find that women entrepreneurs deeply get that because we live rooted in relationships. And relationships are at the heart of everything. You can't separate humanity. You can't just go, oh, it's just business. Don't take it personally. I'm like, of course it's personal. We're humans.
Yeah.
It's not just business. It's connected into how we treat each other.
Yeah, one of the things I've learned, I mean, I knew it before, but it's really been emphasized for me during COVID, is that the most important thing that we have are relationships, and the most important words that we can say are thank you. Those are two takeaways from COVID.
Beautiful. Yeah, gratitude's everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
So as a good segue, and looking at the time, I would say I've got serious gratitude toward you, Vicki, for coming on. I've really enjoyed meeting you and learning about SheEO and learning your story. And I think I'll probably drop you an email about a couple other things that I'm doing if you'd be okay.
Great. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's been fun.
And when we promote the show, Dave, let's put a link to SheEO and the call for new businesses that's going to be coming this fall. So there's probably a lot of women in our communities across the country that want to know about this.
Well, that
would be great.
I think we definitely will do that. And I'm thinking that we could do a little more than that. So yeah. we'll connect later on, Vicki. Thank you very much.
Great. And for anyone who wants to be an activator, it's $92 a month or $1,100 for the year. You can sign up at SheEO.world. And this is our sort of push each year in Canada around this time, because we go to voting in early November. And that's one of the most fun parts of this. As entrepreneurs apply, you get to read through their applications and then vote for the ones that you're most excited about supporting. So it's a really fun experience to be part of this, and it's a really tangible way of taking a bit of money each month and contributing towards those people that really step out of their comfort zone to solve major challenges we're facing.
Fabulous. It sounds great. I look forward to supporting you further with The Backbone, which is the other podcast that I run. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks, Lisa, for being an activator.
Yeah, you bet. My pleasure. Thanks for your great work. We'll see you soon.
Okay, ciao.
Bye.
If you enjoyed the show, please like, share, and subscribe. And visit themayorhelps.com to submit your questions to the show.